England's players were racially abused during their 4-0 win over Hungary in European World Cup qualifying at the Puskás Arena. Monkey chants were aimed at players on different occasions. Before kick-off, England players took the knee in a show of solidarity against all forms of discrimination, and boos were heard. Raheem Sterling scored England's first goal, and shortly after he went down in the penalty area and was then racially abused from the stands. A warning that this footage contains a racist gesture. This is the Hungarian fan that our cameras spotted clearly aiming a racist gesture towards Sterling in the 59th minute. Our reporter Rob Dorset was in the Puskás Arena.
Well, I have to be honest, it was a pretty quiet first half where a lot of people were clearly discussing the booing of England's players taking a knee. But in the second half, and particularly after Raheem Sterling scored that opening goal for England, there was pretty clear and overt racism that I've witnessed inside the Puskás Arena this evening. 4 separate incidents, 4 separate individuals, I can tell you, I've seen specifically doing monkey chants. I think we've played some of those pictures out on Sky Sports News already. In fact, I'll get our cameraman Dan Cox to pan across and show you where that section is. It's the most noisy and fanatical part of the Hungarian support, known as the Hungarian Orchard. And you shouldn't overplay it. The vast majority of the fans you're looking at there, we didn't see any incidents of racism involving them. But there were specific pockets of fans, specific individuals who were repeat offenders, if you like. I saw 3 separate incidents where Raheem Sterling was targeted immediately after he scored the opening goal, immediately after he set up the second goal for Harry Kane, and then when he came down to near the corner flag where we are now, and he was targeted by a separate group of individuals. We weren't able, of course, to capture all of that on camera because it happened quickly, but my eyes were quick enough to see it very, very clearly. And then there was an incident involving Jude Bellingham when he was warming up on the touchline right in front of us here, running towards those groups of supporters that we've just seen. There were very clear and numerous incidents of monkey chanting directed at Jude Bellingham. Remember, a teenager, a very, very young man still, and huge credit to him in how he responded to that racist abuse, the overt monkey chanting that was directed at him. He smiled and waved back at the crowd. That speaks volumes of him as an individual, I think you have to say. I think when we speak to the rest of the England players shortly in the post-match interviews, it'll be interesting to hear whether they heard any of the racist abuse that we heard being so close to the ultras. It's such a noisy stadium with well-nigh 60,000 supporters in here. It might have been difficult for the individual pockets of racist chanting to have been picked out by the players on the pitch. So when we tell them in the post-match interviews what we've heard, it may be the first they're aware of it. I can tell you that Raheem Sterling is certainly aware of it, and Jude Bellingham is certainly aware of it, and we will try to get interviews with them as soon as we possibly can. But just to reiterate, this is not general amongst the whole of those supporters you've been looking at, but we've identified certainly 4 separate incidents and 4 separate individuals who are involved in racist chanting, monkey chanting, overt racism inside the Puskás Arena. And bear in mind, the Hungarian FA has already been fined £85,000 in order to play 2 games behind closed doors, while they were involved in some homophobic and racist abuse during the Euros. I'm stepping out of the way because you can see that the stewards have pinned down a supporter in the distance there. That, we think, was somebody who threw a flare onto the pitch, and you suspect there will be charges brought by FIFA for the firework that we saw thrown onto the pitch. And if I just get Dan, our cameraman, to pan down here, you can see the plastic cups that are littered on the sideline here. That's what was thrown at Raheem Sterling as he celebrated that opening goal for England in front of the Hungarian supporters in this corner. A distressing night for England's players. As I say, I'm not sure they will know all of the detail about exactly what has happened, but it was very clear to us. Let's just repeat exactly what it was so that there's no doubt and any confusion in our viewers' minds. 4 separate incidents involving individuals who were involved in racist chanting, monkey chanting directed at England's players, specifically Raheem Sterling and Jude Bellingham in particular. We can wait to see what FIFA does about it. As soon as we've spoken to Gareth Southgate and the England players, we'll bring that to you on Sky Sports News. of those incidents surely marred what was a tremendous performance by England tonight. A 4-0 win away from home against what Gareth Southgate said was their nearest rivals in World Cup qualifying Group I. But you know that the headlines are going to be about the racist chanting, as they should be, and questions will be asked to FIFA and the Hungarian FA about what we've seen here tonight.
And let's get some more reaction from Budapest now. Short time ago, England captain Harry Kane speaking to Rob.
That we were very clearly witnesses to a number of separate but isolated incidents of racist abuse directed towards the players, specifically towards Raheem after you scored your goal, after he scored the opening goal, and to young Jude Bellingham when he was warming up on the side of the pitch here. First and foremost, you as captain, were you aware of any of that?
No, I wasn't aware. I didn't find out until after the game. But look, it's totally unacceptable. We've been in positions like that before. Yeah, obviously I know the FA will do all they can to try and resolve the situation. They'll talk to UEFA. But yeah, of course it's disappointing, but I couldn't be prouder of the boys, of what we've done and how we performed in a tough place, in a hostile place. And it just shows the character in this team.
Harry, there has been racist chanting here before. They've got a punishment pending from UEFA behind closed doors for 2 matches. What now? What needs to happen to fans like this?
That's out of our hands as players, but we hope that UEFA are strong with their sanctions. That's all we can ask. It's unacceptable on any level, and just disappointing. You know, we're here to play football and to enjoy ourselves and to put on a show for all these fans, home or away. So it's a shame there's a few that decide to act like that. So we just hope UEFA come down strongly.
Let's get some more reaction to that racist abuse that England players have suffered over in Budapest this evening and speak to Troy Townsend from Kick It Out. Troy, very good evening to you. It's a shame that we have to be talking about a subject matter that's becoming all too familiar. And I guess that's the problem, isn't it? That this is probably something we saw coming a long way off.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct, Rob. We could have preempted this. I think we did preempt it, that it was going to happen. FIFA knew this was a high-profile game. They were well aware of what happened in the Euros in the summer and how UEFA have dealt with that. But FIFA don't deal with it in the same manner. So the Hungarians have a clean sweep and they go and produce what they did tonight, which, you know, the atmosphere got increasingly worse from the minute that obviously England went ahead. And it seems like the target of that abuse all the time will always be the black players. So FIFA really should leave no stone unturned now. You know, I'm well aware that they had monitors in the stadium, probably in that section as well, where the Hungarian ultras were. And we ask again for the severest possible punishment, although we haven't seen that yet happen to any nation that has discriminated against players in this way.
When you talk, Troy, about the most severe punishment possible, what would that be? Because they already have a 2-game ban from UEFA for what happened at the Euros. Clearly, that has done nothing to detract the supporters from behaving in this manner.
For me, it should be elimination from tournaments now. You know, I don't want to see the Hungarians in a tournament again until they can sort things out so that there is no more racist abuse. There is no more homophobic abuse. They understand the actions and of their fan base. You know, we can't keep doing this. You know, 2 games, 1 suspended. Enough is enough now. If we really are going to take a strong stance against racism and discrimination, unfortunately, it should be the cost of them playing in major tournaments. As you've said, Rob, they've done it twice now in 2 separate tournaments. FIFA do not recognise UEFA's punishments, but they should acknowledge it in how they deal with this so that, you know, these fans are held accountable for their actions. You know, it was an accident waiting to happen tonight, and that accident needs to be addressed and addressed immediately.
Troy, I know you speak to a lot of current players. Of course, your son Andros is one, but it's just so soul-destroying to see someone like an 18-year-old lad like Jude Bellingham doing what he's dreamt of all his life as a young kid growing up, and he goes there as an England player, and this is what happens to him.
Well, if you remember rightly, Callum Hudson-Odoi, making his debut out in Montenegro, faced the same thing. You know, and these experiences will live with these players. The players will ultimately say that they can deal with it. But any time that there's another incident, it brings those traumatic experiences back into their kind of thought process. And I don't think the governance of the game, you know, the FIFAs and UEFAs, the people that deal with these cases, respect that at all and appreciate or understand it because they've never gone through these experiences themselves. So You know, I know Jude will get looked after within the England environment and the England camp, and I'm well aware of how good Gareth Southgate is on looking after the young players and protecting them from those kind of behaviours. But still, he had to experience it, and you know, he'll get the best kind of care. But I think what he would want, and all the other players would want now, is the strongest possible action to happen against Hungary before they do it again to another nation and again to another nation.
Troy, just a final point. I saw on social media a while ago a split photo of Raheem Sterling at the start of the game taking the knee, and then what he had to sort of deal with as he went to celebrate with objects being thrown onto the pitch. This is the point, isn't it, when people ask the question, why do footballers still take the knee? Because they still have to put up with this about an hour later in a match. Well,
let's put it into context. The England players were booed for taking the knee. You know, and they were booed quite loudly and frivolously as well. So ultimately, I think the players were expecting any kind of reaction once the ball had been put in the back of the net. And, you know, Raheem again has done it, you know, and has celebrated because he wanted to show respect for a friend first and foremost. That was the encryption on his T-shirt. But ultimately, he was then faced with bottles, with cups and then obviously the abuse. Whether Raheem heard it or not is another matter. Obviously, Jude did hear it, and it will be something now for England to take to the officials at FIFA for them to deal with. But yeah, it's exactly the reason why the players take the knee, continue to take the knee, continue to put the strongest possible messaging out at this stage because of that fact.
Troy, as ever, real pleasure to speak to you, and as ever, a shame that we're not speaking in sort of more pleasant circumstances. But thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Let's head back to Budapest. The thoughts of Gareth Southgate, the England manager, with Rob.
Gareth, we've got video evidence of racist abuse amongst the Hungarian supporters tonight. I can tell you that I personally saw 4 separate incidents with 4 separate individuals. There were more monkey chants around us where we couldn't identify individuals. It was sporadic, but it was very clear and obvious. What do you say?
Yeah, well, I can only go on what you're telling me, and if that is the case, then we know it's not acceptable. We weren't totally, we weren't conscious of it on the side, and I don't know whether the players on the pitch were. But I think everybody knows what we've spoken about for 2-3 years. You know, they know what we stand for as a team. And we have to hope that we can continue to eradicate racism from not only football but from life in general.
You were very correct in the way you spoke before the game, not to preempt anything and predict any trouble that might happen. It has now happened, and I can tell you that one of the incidents involved Jude Bellingham right in front of us, a teenager who's still learning his way in the game, and he responded by smiling and waving at the crowd. That speaks volumes of the type of man he is, but the type of player that you want in the face of such horrific abuse, doesn't it?
It does, but he shouldn't have to suffer that, frankly. So it's fantastic from him that he's shown that maturity, and I know that our security guys have spoken to him since the game just to get his account of that. But yeah, we don't want to see it. Everybody knows that it's not acceptable. But he's shown great maturity, if that's the case, in how he's dealt with it.
And finally, will the FA complain? I mean, if you didn't hear it yourselves and the players didn't hear it, that might make it difficult. But I suspect when you see our evidence, you might feel differently. Will you complain if that's the case?
I think UEFA have taken this fixture really seriously. You know, they're obviously taking accounts on everything. Yeah, difficult. I'm not really across all of the process of that. Yeah, I'm sorry, I'm losing my thread because I'm got something shouting in my area, so it's hard to think. But it's yeah, we've just got to put the accounts that we've heard, and I'm sure UEFA will gather evidence from different sources.
Thank you. Thanks, John.
Yeah, that's the thoughts of Gareth Southgate with our reporter Rob Dorset over in Budapest, and we will get much more on this story in just a few minutes' time. Do stay with us.